Hi, I'm Carla Higgins, and this is the Double Duty Agent Podcast. I am so glad you're here. Each week, we get together and we explore the stories of successful double duty real estate agents. And from their stories, you can find the solutions to overcoming your challenges and the keys to unlocking your success. Are you ready? Let's get started. Welcome to the Double Duty Agent Podcast. I'm Carla Higgins, your host, and today we are going to be talking about a February kickoff. Can you believe it? It's the first week of February. Actually, what we're going to be talking about today is something that you could do at the end of every month, and it is just a debrief. This is how we can stay on track and make sure that we are hitting our goals. We can make any adjustments that we need to make. So that's what we're going to dive into today. The first thing we're going to talk about is celebrating wins. And this is so important and something that it almost seems that we're not hardwired to do. I think we have a tendency to focus on the things that didn't go well or the things where we fell short instead of celebrating what we actually achieved. So let's talk about that for a minute. These wins, they could be big or small, but we cannot judge them. So often I ask agents, I want to hear a win. And they just sit there and they sit there. And finally I push and push and push. And finally they share a win and they'll start it off with, well, it's not a very big deal, but, and it turns out it's a very big deal. So we cannot judge our wins. Our wins are non-judgeable. So put the judger away. And these wins, they can be transactions. They might be your personal growth or any achievement at all that moved your business forward. Let's say all throughout the month of December, you were having a really hard time following your time block. And then January came and you got better at it. Maybe you weren't 100% perfect at following your time block, but you got better at it. That's a win. And we have to celebrate these wins. Remember, what we focus on expands. If we only focus on the things that we didn't do well, that's what's going to expand. But what if we focused on the wins, the things that we did do well? Then those things will expand and we will continue to improve. So let's also talk about self-assessment. Now, what are the areas where we might self-assess? Well, if you've been around me long enough to know, I'm going to start with your 5 job responsibilities. And I'm going to add to your 5 job responsibilities your mindset. And I think if we grade ourselves on how well we did last month on doing the 5 things that are absolutely our job responsibility, and then we also focus on grading our mindset, this will give us a really good illustration of the things that we can improve on for February. So you can use a grading scale, whatever resonates with you. You could go back to school and do the ABCD, right? You could do that as your grading scale, or you might do 1 to 5. You may do 1 to 10, whatever it is that resonates with you and allows you the opportunity to see where there is room for growth. And then also measure at the end of February where you grew. So how did my grade increase? We're going to do that around our 5 job responsibilities, our conversation practice, and our skill building, right? How often did you practice your conversations? Did you take any classes that were really geared towards building your skills in your real estate business? So personal growth, your job skills, or conversation. And if you did no conversation practice, you cannot give yourself the best grade possible. Remember, this is one of your 5 job responsibilities. You must practice your conversations. The second one is consistent lead generation, consistently talking to people, consistently asking the magic question, who do you know that might need my help with real estate? Right? So remember, it's consistent. This is how we give ourselves a grade. The next one is our lead follow-up and our pipeline work. Remember, it's super important that we're maintaining a pipeline and we're keeping track of the people that have said yes, or maybe they might need our help this year. And then we have to follow up with them regularly. We have to have a follow-up system in place using those smart plans that are in your command if you're at Keller Williams or whatever CRM that you have. We need to have a system so that we are systematically following up with these people so we don't make a phone call a couple months from now and find out they've already purchased a house and there's an agent out there that's going on vacation with our money. Basically, we want to make sure that doesn't happen. So lead follow-up, How did you do with that in January? The next one is going on appointments. So, did you ask for appointments? Did you schedule appointments? And did you have appointments? And remember, these appointments, these are our buyer strategy sessions or buyer consultations and our listing appointments. Without these two appointments, we don't have business. So, are you consistently scheduling and going on your buyer consultations and your listing appointments? And you should know exactly how many appointments you need every month in order to stay on track for your goals. Negotiating contracts. Again, one of our job responsibilities. And you might say, but Coach Carla, I don't have any contracts to negotiate right now. Okay, what should you be doing if you have no contracts to negotiate? Same thing as what you should be doing if you have no appointments. You should be adding extra time to your calendar to lead generate and lead follow up, talk to people. Also, on negotiating contracts, if you're a new agent and you cannot explain every one of the main contracts that you use to your client easily, then this is going to combine with your conversation practice. You need to read the contracts, every word of the contract, and you need to know what it means. And you need to be able to explain each and every provision in the purchase or sales agreement, in your listing agreement, in your agency agreement. You need to understand those and be able to explain it. So if you don't, then you need to spend the time to practice those things. And this is how you're going to give yourself a grade. So, how comfortable are you with those contracts? And then, did you negotiate any in January? And then the last thing I want you to grade yourself on is maintaining a growth mindset. Remember, having a growth mindset is super important. And that doesn't mean that your limiting beliefs are not going to take hold from time to time. But having a growth mindset is going to help you identify when you're being hijacked by your ego and those limiting beliefs, and help you identify the story that you're telling yourself so that you can start working on a new story and unlimit those beliefs. So we have to have that growth mindset and know that we are in charge of what's happening in our lives, and make sure that we maintain the mindset around that. All right. So after we've identified our wins, and then we've done a little self-assessment and a little grading, now we're going to ask ourselves 4 reflective questions. And I want you to think back on January and think on these 4 questions. What went well that I need to do more of? Think about the conversations that you had. What kind of conversations did you initiate? What kind of questions did you ask? If you're following the double duty 5x5 and it was working for you, well, can you do more of that? Or do you have a lead generation system and maybe you need to work on your system so that you have one that is repeatable so that you can get the consistency? But what went well that you need to do more of? Maybe it's networking. Maybe you had a really awesome month out networking and you want to make sure that you intentionally continue to do that. Or maybe your social media went really, really well for you in January. You need to look back at the type of work that you did with your social media, how you were intentional and focused, and what do you need to do more of? Question number 2 is, what didn't I do that I should have? We all have these things. No beating yourself up here. This is just simply an identification. I should have been doing this and I didn't, and I need to work on it. This is where we get clarity and we are getting real with ourselves. And that's what we have to do as well if we want to achieve success. All right, question number 3, what got in my way? What got in my way? If you say it was my job, okay, that got in your way. Just write that down. It could have been family commitments. For me, I had one day where the pipes burst in my kitchen when it was super cold, and that got in my way for the day. So, whatever it is, what got in your way? So, go back and look where you were consistent and where the consistency broke. What caused that to happen? We have to get really clear with ourselves. We can't be in control of what happens moving forward if we can't identify what happened in the past. The past leaves clues. It absolutely does. And then question number 4 is, what could I have done to prevent that? Now, in my case, I had all the things to keep my pipes from bursting. So there was absolutely nothing that I could do to prevent that. But I had some things that I can tell you that went really well because I had a great group of vendors that I could reach out to, and I got it resolved quickly, and I kept my mindset in the right place. I didn't take that a victim stance. I was instead grateful that I was home and I was able to catch it before it got really big damage. So, but same thing, right? What could you have done to prevent it? If work got in the way, for instance, of you getting your lead generation done, is there anything that you could have done to prevented the overtime or whatever caused it? And maybe the answer is no, there's absolutely nothing you could do to prevent it. But then the question is, okay, so work got in the way of my lead generation. Did we practice the replace, not erase strategy? And if the answer is no, well, that's what we could do better, right? We wouldn't have missed out on the lead generation if we would have just moved it on our calendar instead of erasing it or ignoring it. Now, the fourth part of our month end debrief is going to be a gap review. Now, your gap, this is the difference between what you want to happen and what actually happened, what you needed to do and what you actually did. Okay. So, we got to think about this. We have lead measures and lag measures. The lead measures, these are the things that the actions that we take that lead to the results that we want. And then the lag measures are the results that we want. So, for us and our real estate business, our lag measures are our closings, right? Getting paid. That is our lag measure. Getting appointment might be kind of a lead measure and a lag measure because in order to get an appointment, we have to have conversations, and the conversations are the original lead measures. Okay. So lead gets us to where we want to be, and lag is where we want to be. And we need to be tracking all of these things, right? We cannot improve what we don't measure. We can't make adjustments if we're not measuring. So you need to be keeping aware of how many conversations are you having? How many dials does it take for you to have the conversations? If you're following the double duty 5x5, that's pretty simple because we're having 5 conversations a day. We are having 5 text messages a day. We're writing 5 handwritten notes, and we are doing 5 social media activities, a post and 4 interactions. And finally, we're doing 5 lead follow up calls. So you're going to be able to track that each and every day. And that's going to help you know. Now, if you need to do 5 a day, 5 days a week, and that's 25, and you only got 20 in last week, then your gap is not big math. It's 5, right? So we need to make sure we know that. Now we're also going to look at our gap as it relates to our closings for the year and our gross commission income for the year. And this is how we're going to make sure we stay on track so that you can achieve your goals and make your dreams come true. So, we're going to start off with how many closings did you need for 2025 and how many have you had so far? Pretty simple. Now we know what the gap is. Also, your gross commission income. How much have you earned so far this year in gross commission income? And what is your goal? The difference between the two is your gap. And then we're going to continue this gap review into our last segment for our debrief, and that is revisiting your GPS. Now, your GPS, this is simply how we set goals. This comes from the book called The One Thing, written by Gary Keller and Jay Papasan. And we had some goal settings episodes in the end of 2024. But our GPS, this is simply our 3 priorities that are going to lead us to our ultimate goal. So for each priority, you're going to identify your current gap. And this may not be completely measurable, although it should be somewhat because we make sure that we set SMART goals when we do our GPS. So you'll remember SMART goals: specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, and time bound. And then my little asterisk at the end is you also have to know what your reason is because your reason has to be bigger than your resistance. So we're going to look at this. So let's say my number one priority was that I was going to have 100 conversations with my database every month. Well, we can pretty much see how are we doing with that based on how many conversations did we have last month with our database, and then we'll know how we're setting. Or it could be that our GPS says that we're going to ask the question, who do you know that might need my help with real estate 100 times in the month? You see the point of this. Or it could be I'm going to have 2 open houses every week. So that would be 8 open houses. And maybe we only had 6 in January. So we have a gap of 2. This gap is super important that we are aware of it so that we can start filling the gap. So let's use my last example. If I'm going to hold 2 open houses every week, and that is 8 open houses in a month, and last month I only held 6 open houses. In order to stay on track to my goal, what would I have to do in February? I would have to have 10 open houses. Right. And let's say in February, I only had 9, and now I have a gap of 1, and I'm going to add that on to my March. And then I would need to have 9 open houses in March to stay on track to my goals. Do you see how this gap exercise works? And it's also super important because if you do not follow an exercise similar to this, what will happen is when you get to the fall, you're going to look up and you are going to be so far behind. Well, you can't catch up, right? I always think I'm going to get a t-shirt that has a bottle of ketchup on it. It says, you cannot catch up. You got to stay on track. Got to stay on track. Now, I'm going to make this easy for you. You can head on over to doubledutypodcast.com and you can download a form that you can use at the end of every month to do this month in debrief. It's a little worksheet and it's going to guide you through the process that we just talked about. And I'm going to tell you, this isn't a quick thing. You cannot do this in 5 minutes or less. You're going to have to really set with yourself and be real. Now, think about this. You are a business owner, and basically you're sitting down and reviewing how your employee did in January. Yeah, it's kind of a month review for your employee, you. Right? Even if you have a team and you have an administrative assistant, you're going to be reviewing you and your administrative assistant along the way. So, this is how we are going to have clarity in our business. And this is a fundamental way that you will ensure that you make your dreams come true. So I'll be excited to hear how your month in debrief goes and what you learn from this exercise. Now, as we wrap up today, I want to tell you, I know it's been a couple of weeks since we had interviews, and I have 2 amazing interviews on deck for you the next 2 weeks. You are going to love hearing these stories and be super inspired. So be sure to check in. And if you had a big aha or a takeaway today, or if I've earned a 5-star review, I'd love it if you would leave it wherever it is that you listen to podcasts. This is how I grow the community and how together we can get agents to join us on our double duty journey. So thank you again for tuning in each and every week. It means so much to me. And if you have a question or a challenge that you'd like to hear featured on a future episode of Coach's Corner, which airs every Friday, head on over to doubledutypodcast.com and share it with me. I would love to hear from you. And if you can think of another agent that might really benefit from a month in debrief exercise, please share this episode. Until next time, keep showing up, keep striving, keep building the life and business you've been dreaming of, and continue to rise as a double duty agent. I'll see you next time.
Thank you for joining me today. I hope you're leaving inspired and you found a key or 2 you're going to try out this week to see how they help you to unlock your success. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single story. And if you'd like to get in touch with me, you can find me at doubledutypodcast.com. That link is also in the show notes. Until next time, have a productive week.